opportunity to watch it on our YouTube channel. So it's an exciting time because we're going to touch on a very interesting topic today with our guest, Robert, and I'm here with my co-host, Tatiana. First, let me start by welcoming you to this live conversation here on Zoom and live on Facebook. We are this, I have this whole sentence in this whole preparation in my head, and now it's somewhere there. So, a special online conversation hosted by Move Into the Future and the Wize Move Society. It's the online community for the over 50 generation. So this generation is growing rapidly. We're living longer, are longer, healthy and active, and we're better educated than ever. So we just need to tap into this knowledge, experience, and wisdom. And with these Tuesday live conversations, we aim to give you a glimpse of what is happening online on the Wize Move Society, to share a bit about both the challenges and the opportunities that the 50+ generation is facing, as well as how the members of the Wize Move community work together to create solutions and play an active role in society and in the economy. So this Wize generation is very clear that we're not on our way out, we're part of the future. So for those who join us on Zoom, please jump into the conversation. Really want to hear your voice. If you join us on Facebook, please share your comments below in the chat. My name is Ingun and a founder of Move Into the Future and the creator of the Wize Move Society. I'm here today with my co-host, Dr. Tatiana Rowson, and our guest, Robert Vos from the Netherlands. Robert is an author of the book 50/50, a roadmap to advance women to the top. Very important. He's an executive coach. He is, for us, a Wize Move thought leader. He's one of my advisors and a trainer at the platform. And he's an expert on building sustainable networks, especially using tools or platforms like LinkedIn. So together we're going to dive into the topic. Thank you for being a friend. So before I do that, I would like to give my co-host Tatiana the floor so she can share a bit about her background, and she will pass the stage on to Robert. So Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Ingun. I have to say that the title of today's conversation is very, very intriguing. So I'm really curious and dying to dive in. But before we do, just introduce myself to anyone that doesn't know me. I'm Tatiana Rowson. I'm a psychologist. I'm a researcher and academic, and I pretty much look into midlife transitions and aging at work, with a view that if we really understand what the changes that are happening at this stage of life, we can actually make the most of this transition rather than let the transition or change happen to us. So without further ado, I will invite Robert to dive into the topic. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. Thank you, Ingun. Good day, all of you. I'll start with a brief introduction of myself for people who don't know me yet. My name is Robert Vos, and I'm a passionate ally to help ambitious and competent women to move further, to advance into their organizations, high up into the top of their organizations. I value diversity, equity, and inclusion very much. Like I also do value values like love, care, and wisdom. And when we talk about the Wize Move Society, obviously the 50+ generation who have encountered love, who know what care is all about, and now are in the stage of sharing their wisdom. And in order to share that wisdom, obviously you need an audience. And that may be an audience that you have been living amongst for many, many years already. But obviously, and even for retired people, it may be of interest to find new friends, to find new, new contacts that may help to fill their days in a very valuable way. I'm 50 plus myself, actually 50 plus many years, and I still I still make a lot of contacts. I love to share, the knowledge and experience I have with especially younger people, but actually anybody. That for an introduction so far. Is that okay?
Brilliant.
Back to you, Ingun.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robert. And welcome, Mary Jane. She just joined. Yes, there's a lot. And I know there's a lot going on. You have a wide background also in the corporate world. So it's already a great start that you say, okay, it's very much we need more women in the top. And I think also because you believe that what they can do higher in organizations, that would really make a difference. And then, talking about a 50 plus generation, and before we dive into the topic of the networking, how do you think that women in the top of organizations would perceive, would have a different perspective of, welcoming all those different age group in their organization, that intergenerational, multi-generational workforce?
Actually, I believe since there is a cultural difference between men and women, and obviously this dichotomy is only how do you say in the thoughts of people, because there are many more diversities, if you like, between solely the man and solely the woman. LGBTQIA plus, for instance, is a variety, a diversity, when we talk about gender. But, culturally, there have grown over time, there have grown a number of differences between, let's say, man and woman, being the man more action oriented, while the woman culturally used to stay at home and take care. And taking care is a very different perspective from go out and hunt or whatever those men were used to do. I'm talking in the old way just to make that difference clear. And I'm fully aware that obviously the differences between men may be larger than the differences between man and woman, as the differences between the variety of women may be even greater than the difference between man and woman. But in general, women are extremely good in maintaining relationships. And so when we talk about networking, when we talk about how an organization could benefit from more women in the top, then definitely one of the advantages of having more women in the top is that the way of communication starts to change, because men have a particular perspective on the world. They are action oriented, especially the ones who are in the top today. I'm not talking about all men being, equally action oriented, but especially the ones that we see at the top right now within businesses, within corporations, within countries, those men are very action oriented. So once we allow more women, to go up, to advance through these organizations in managerial positions, leading people, they will, more than men used to do, they will make sure that these teams work together towards a common goal, not towards the goal of this particular guy, this particular male manager, but towards a corporate goal. And that's already a subtle difference in the way women lead a team and the way men used to lead a team. Now, once we get that, once we get more female leadership into our organizations, also men will be able to show their inner feminine qualities. In a male-dominated organization, in a male-dominated, dominantly male culture, men are afraid, actually afraid, to show these feminine qualities they have. They, you know, they keep that below sea level, so to speak. Nobody will notice. And so that's why this dominantly male dominance is actually no good for organizations. It's not good for geopolitics as we see today. And looking east, we see some things over there where male dominance actually makes wrong decisions and leads, you know, to the wrong outcome. That's a long answer to your question, Ingun, but
it is a long answer to my question. And I do think that we need a lot more time to talk about this, but we'll have to take another moment because we really want to move into that 50 plus networking, building new networks. And just to give to paint the picture, you know, if you look at the Wize Move Society and everything that we do there, we have actually we're focused on 4 key areas, you know, that is, you know, healthy aging, different kinds of healthy aging. That is very much, the second one is very much focused on building new networks, building new support systems at a later age. We have, of course, what is the next step in your working life or your new stage of life? And then there's this financial stability. But everything, one of these 4 is that part of building new networks, building a network in general, but also building a new support system, having new friends. You know, you have gone through so many phases in life. So this is so important because there's also a lot of loneliness in this group. Why is networking so important for this group? Because you can also say, oh, you know, I already have my 2,000 contacts on friends. Do you want to be my friend? 2,000 friends on Facebook. I have my 3,000 friends on LinkedIn. And now I'm moving to a new stage in my life. Why is it so important?
Well, why is it important? Let me state in the beginning that networking is actually, it's great fun. And why is it great fun? Because you meet a lot of people. And I'm not talking about meeting online only. I'm also talking about meeting people in real life. All these online tools we have, be it WhatsApp, be it LinkedIn, be it Facebook, whatever, there are many, you know, are excellent tools to find people, to locate people, and to get in touch with people. But the fun, the real fun, starts when you meet these people in real life, and you exchange your thoughts, you exchange your ideas, and you may be able to help people by sharing your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge. And in return, you get a lot of information back. People will, you know, will talk about their life, their experiences. And that may, you know, in your head, all of a sudden, an idea may pop up that you know it was somewhere subconsciously, but because of this dialogue you're having with your new friend, it pops up again. And maybe together you can start a new initiative, a new, you know, even a new enterprise, if you like, or a foundation. You know, Ingun, you're an excellent example. And you've been in corporations, you've been around in the world, you've seen what's going on there. And now all of a sudden, instead of retiring and sitting behind, as we say in Holland, behind the begonias, behind these lovely flowers, you started some foundations, some initiatives. And that is, coming back to my opening sentence, great fun. It provides energy, you know, and instead of preparing for death, you're actually having great fun and moving on. And everybody loves it around you.
I'm born to connect. You know, I was, yeah, well, a couple of weeks ago, I was even awarded a global award for being the connector. And you're right, I'm absolutely someone who just loves the network, loves to connect people. And I always, one of my mantras is, you know, your network is not worth anything if you don't share it. You know,
That's
it's
right.
also about, you know, if anyone needs a connection, then you will have someone in your, of course, it helps you to move forward. And that is very important, you know, especially if you compare it, if you've been 40 years or 30 years in this corporate environment, and now you decide to build your own business in a totally different area, you need to build another network, because otherwise you will just get stuck in that old environment. And that is also very important. Tatiana, I would like to involve you in the conversation. How about you? Do you have a large network?
I do. I'm a quiet networker.
A quiet networker.
Because I really like networking on a one-to-one basis and getting really to know people. And I think that in my environment of academia might seem that that's not what we do, but unless we connect, we don't generate new ideas, we don't have new projects, and we don't get new pieces of research forward. So it's an important part of the creative process is the networking and the connections. And it's interesting because it's what you and Robert are saying. Sometimes your network helps other people to connect with each other and produce things that are fantastic and interesting. And that even strengthens your relationship with them. Because by being a facilitator, you get more out of your network, even though you don't get that immediate benefit. But I'm going to link that to something else I was reading, and I think we'll bring some interesting aspect to this conversation. I was reading today a piece of research on unemployment and what happens in terms of the impact of unemployment on loneliness. And this was based on a panel data, which is longitudinal data in Germany. So that's just to give a little bit of context. So several years on. And what they found is the impact of unemployment on loneliness only starts to hit 2 years after unemployment, and much more for that psychological aspect that I'm not being good enough, and therefore I'm going to start hiding because I don't want people to see it. And that's sort of what triggers that loneliness. So I will pose this question out there on my screen, Robert. I'm going to just say, I'm looking at you, but I'm just going to put the question out there. But how important is in these transitions that you leaving organizations, starting something new, is to ensure that that network is there so you don't end up feeling that you failed or missing out or discouraged to find new contacts.
Yeah, you have to avoid that, prevent that feeling, and it's very, you know, before networking, before you start exploiting or exploring your network, you should actually sit down for a moment and try to establish some rules for yourself. I always refer to insight and reflection, self-insight, self-reflection. So, and this should lead to what would you like to do in the rest of your life? And that's a question everybody can ask, not only 50 plus, but anybody, because tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life. And what are you going to do? What is your intention? What is your purpose? So, you know, a 50 plus a guy or gal has a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience gained over time. And what do you want to do with that? Do you want to share that knowledge? How? With whom? And once you start thinking about, what is next, I'm retired, and what would be an interesting next step for me? You really have to sit down and answer these questions for yourself. What do I want to, what do I want to be for the next 10, 15, 20 years? What do I want to do? How can I create value, not only for myself, get more value in my own life, but also by sharing all that knowledge with other people. And then you come to the question, where are the other people? How can I meet those? But you have to make clear to yourself by self-insight, by self-reflection, make clear what it is that you want. And it's always good to focus, meaning try to find one particular purpose or one particular objective. But if you are a talent and you can maintain more objectives, then write them down. Objective 1, 2, and 3. And then by looking at these objectives for the short term, for the longer term, then you start finding the right people. So that's the start.
Oh, I like that. I like this idea of starting with what you want, your purpose, where you're going with your life, and then what follows is then finding your crowd, finding your group of people.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Robert, that takes me as well of some of my research on expatriates, where people moving to different countries experience that need to make new friends. And sometimes they realize they made the wrong friends because they never stopped to question, is this the group I want to mix? And you end up being friends with one particular group because you have one bit in common, whether having children or coming from a certain country or speaking a certain language, and then don't necessarily represent what you are becoming or what you want to be. It's just not enough. But not having this moment of reflection is what makes it really hard to move into action, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing, if I may add, the good thing about reflection is that, in case you have a feeling that you don't carry any value, through reflection, you will notice that any person is a valuable, entity, and so are you. And, you can find for yourself, what am I good at? You have built up a lot of competencies over time, but mention the 3 competencies that you're really good at, that you still can share with other people. What are the most important values in your life? For me today, it is what I said earlier. It's love, care, and wisdom. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And those things drive me for what I'm doing today. So ask these questions, and then of course you come to a overall purpose, if you like, an overall objective that you would be willing to accomplish over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And then you have your compass. Then you can start looking for new friends in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
I really love this conversation, Robert. You see, I'm not allowing Ingun to say anything or Mary Jane to say anything. So it's, but I think this is a real interesting starting point of these values and what's the purpose of starting in self. And we often hear talk about that, how important it is to start in ourselves, what we're doing, so we can actually get some fulfillment out of it, because that's as well part of why we do things, is to have that sense of fulfillment. And one of the things I observe, especially when I observe people going through midlife, is that for so long they've been leaving the expectation of someone else, whether a social expectation they should be doing this or pursuing that, or expectations that they still carry from their parents, even though they might be well in their 40s, but they have this load that they must comply. And suddenly that's the point things start shifting in a way that they either change and reconnect, or the change will happen anyway because other people just see through. They see it that you're not living your full potential because you're not in the right place. So I think that's a very interesting idea of coming back to the individual before moving forward, coming back to self before actually moving out and finding that network.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I would like to join in that conversation. If you look at, yes, going back to self, the other thing is also to be really interested in the other person. You know, it's not only about you. It is not only about what I want, but it's also about what the other wants. And you know, that is it on platforms, for instance, like LinkedIn, because of course we are still very much focused on how can we network online. You know, I just love to meet with those people. They invite you to be, you know, do you want to be my friend? It's the title of today. Yes, I want to be your friend, but you know, let's talk. You know, there is a reason why you asked me to connect, but then let's talk, because then we really have that personal, that really personal connection. And that is also very feminine, Robert, and also not just feminine, also, you know, men at a later stage in life, they also have that more that heart-to-heart connection, is really making that click on who are you and who are we. And always, you know, I have at the end of a conversation, I always ask, so what can I do for you? It's not only about me and now I can move forward, but it is also very much about, okay, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're looking for. So what can I do for you? And you don't have to answer that question right now. You can also answer that question in 2 weeks' time or in 2 months' time, when you feel like, oh, wow, I had that conversation with Ingun, and now I really want to contact her because now I have the answer to that question, what she can do for me. And that's okay. You know, you really establishing that real connection, that is also so important, because they're going to do that in return to once that I have at least opened up, that I would say, okay, you know, just let me know what I can do for you. You know, my network is your network. They will do the same. If they hear anything tomorrow and they feel like, oh, wow, Ingun really needs to talk to that person, they will also contact you. So there's these real personal connection. And that is also what we mentioned in the beginning, you know, also about female and male and the masculine and the feminine. It is about compassion, about empathy, about wanting to know who that other person is, and not always thinking about, so what can I get out of it? Because that is more the masculine way. It is more also that real connection what we can make. And I do believe that is more difficult to do online than when you can meet people in person. I just love to say, okay, let's have a coffee. Mary Jane, I would love to hear your idea.
Yeah, a lot of ideas running through in my head, and I really appreciate the conversation. As you know, Ingun, I love networking.
Absolutely.
And I think, and I'm also a connector, you know. I'm always, as soon as I meet somebody, I'm thinking, oh, you know, who can I in my network, you know, guide this person to. But I think where I'm heading in my thoughts is that what I'm seeing, particularly online with, say, something like LinkedIn, that people are hitting, they've been at a job, a place of work, say for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever, and they're not building their network external to that organization. Mm-hmm. And then something happens and they're out of work. And so I guess what I'm seeing a lot of now, and I just had this conversation with one of our members yesterday, Ingun, and that she started only 5 years ago building her network, and she's 70. And so, and she was asking me, how do you do it? And so we talked a little bit about that. But I think what's really, really important is building that network as you move along. You may not need it per se, but what can you offer others, and in terms of having that network? And then you also, when something happens for you, you've what's the term that, when you've built that credibility, you've built that you can then ask others also to help you. But if you all of a sudden are stuck and you have no work and no place to turn, no opportunities, and you haven't built your network, then it's, to me, it would be like a choking, effect. But it does take a lot to ask for help, to ask for someone else to perhaps introduce you to someone. But if you've built up your bank account in your network, people are going to be open to giving back to you as well. And that's what I love about it, it's the give and take. It's the give and take, and being open for that. It's one of the thoughts that was coming up in my head when we think about creating this new network. But maybe it's also building that network up through the years, and with, again, a different focus at a certain stage in your life. But yeah, it's incredibly important, I think, to have that network. So when I see somebody, who has, and is not very active on a platform like LinkedIn, and then suddenly is confronted with a loss in function and work, but they still want to keep going, where do you turn to? You've lost a huge opportunity. And of course, I say LinkedIn because we've not been able to network in person the last 2 years. But I think, yeah, it's incredibly important, having this network.
Robert, a lot of different perspectives.
I agree. I agree fully with Mary Jane, but building a network is one thing, and especially when you have work at the moment, make sure that you connect to the people, working around you within the organization you're working at. But also keep in mind that your organization may have suppliers. Get in touch with them, make them part of your network, because, whatever happens, you don't know. And maybe later, when you're outside this particular organization, you may get in touch with that supplier. The same accounts for business partners, or maybe, when you're in sales, all your customers, make sure you connect to them, because they may be the next step in your career. So, and it's not only about building, because, sometimes people, are very proud and tell you they have 7,000 connections on LinkedIn. But what is the value of 7,000 connections if you do not maintain your network? So it's extremely important to stay in touch with people that may, in one way or the other, may be relevant to you. And what Mary Jane said about giving and taking, I always compare it with compliments. I had a guy, and he came to me and he said, Robert, I never get any compliments from nobody. Well, I felt sorry for him, of course. And then I asked him, when was the last time you gave a compliment? And then, of course, it was very quiet. So I said, why don't you start by giving compliments. And then, over time, you will get many back. The same is true for recommendations on LinkedIn. It's very good and very wise to have recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. But you get recommendations by first giving one or two to people you really and genuinely recommend to others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's building the network and also maintaining the network. And I already used the word relevant. And something is relevant to you if it relates to your purpose, to your objectives, to your next goal. Then particular people, everybody is relevant, of course, but there are in your network, some people are a little bit more relevant to your next step than the others in your network. And those are the ones you must pick and choose to start networking, re-networking, if you like, to network again. Once you get unemployed or retired, or whenever you want to perform a career switch, you can start networking in that direction.
Yeah, and what is very important is to realize, and that is what you mentioned with maintain your network, building and maintaining it, that costs a lot of time and energy. Yeah. It's not something that grows overnight. And it's, you can also, if it grows overnight, then you will lose it overnight as well. It is something, if you really want a sustainable network also for the next so many years, then you really have to invest that time and energy to be able to do that. Yeah, I would like to make one step to, and that is something you also mentioned in the beginning, it's also fun. The thing that we mentioned so far is a very professional network. So it's, okay, I have my job, or I have the next career step, or I'm going to start my own business, or anyhow. There's also this part, and we already mentioned it, this group, there's a lot of loneliness. People also need new friends at a later phase in life. It might be that you're in your 50s and maybe, your relationship ended, your kids have moved out, you may have lost your job. Then it's, you lose your complete identity. And with your job, you lost your colleagues. With your marriage, you lost at least half of your friends. With the kids moving out, you don't have all this thing going on with all these friends and the friends of the kids and their parents. And so there's a lot, then your world becomes very small. And especially also in a time like this, that there's this world, it's so disruptive, what is happening. You need people to also just have fun. But then you also need people that, are in a same phase and a same stage of their life. How do you do that? How do you build that support system, that circle of friends? And it might be friends, but also professional part. This is also something that we really need to look into. What do you think, Robert?
Well, again, it starts with purpose. What do you want, and how do you want it, and what can you bring to the table? Now, your question is, where do I find that table? Well, sitting in your apartment doesn't get you anywhere. You may use your laptop or your tablet to get in touch online. There are lots of applications, lots of websites where you can start looking for people with, let's say, the same characteristic as yours. You could go looking at clubs. You could go looking at particular cafes. You could go and look particular sports, be it a supporter or being a participant. an elder participant, so to speak, but even these sporting clubs exist. So, you know, the basic answer is get up and get out. Get out of your apartment, you know, go out and meet people. There may be particular events. Fortunately, nowadays we can have events again. So go out and meet people. Maybe there are in your neighborhood, there are Friday afternoon meetings or drinks or whatever. I know in my hometown, we do have these facilities. So go out and meet people and, you know, tell those people what you are looking for. And in some cases, you won't get an answer, you know, well, okay, then that particular person is not relevant for the course you are taking. But it can happen all of a sudden that one particular person says, okay, but in that case, you need to talk to Mr. or Mrs. XYZ. And then all of a sudden, you know, you have your first hit. And that is the direction you're going. You know, don't expect this to happen every weekend or every day of the week. But if you continue doing this, you know, and it's like applying for a job.
Mhm.
It's almost the same thing. You get a lot of rejections. The good thing about networking, you know, going out and meet people in real life or online, you know, possibly, is that they will not reject you. There's no thing that you have to pass. You have a nice conversation, and at the end of the conversation, you may you may have been helped because they gave you this Mr. or Mrs. XYZ name and all the contact data you need in order to move further. You know, and if you didn't, just continue. Meet the next person. And you will become a master, you know, just by experience, by doing it, you will become a master in these kinds of network conversations. And you will start to like it. And you will notice, you know, if you open your eyes and look around, you will notice there are people in a similar situation and you can help the other, perhaps. And perhaps that person can also help you again. So it's moving forward and connecting to as many people as possible.
I like all these verbs in your explanation. It is about doing, going, moving, acting. You know, it doesn't anywhere say sit back and relax and turn on the television, and then it's not going to happen. Absolutely. Tatiana, I'd love to hear your ideas.
No, I agree. It's interesting, that aspect of it takes a little bit of effort to build a network. And sometimes when people find themselves lonely, they look around and they think they were the ones that received this gift, or not a gift, of end up without the chair to sit. You know, the musical chairs you end up with now, the one to sit. But it's easy to think that connections, friendships, and relationships comes easily to us. It's like our health. If we don't look after it, we don't have it. And even when we look after it, sometimes it's hard to keep up. But it won't magically stay there. It might do. Maybe we in the lottery of life we get that, but it usually requires a certain level of effort. But I think it's one of these aspects of life that, especially in mid-adulthood, can get really forgotten because life is so busy, because the working day is so pressurized that when you get home, the last thing you think about is sending a message to someone or going for a walk, or so those things are left behind. So I think just like any habit, we lose the ability to do it naturally. So as the muscle gets weakened and we sort of start feeling awkward, is Robert, you said how you start the conversation, how you start the small talk to network. And the first one is really hard and awkward because that might be a skill that we forgot, that we let go of. But with practice, we can get into the mode of things. And I have to say, we very quickly build a repertoire of things that we say to people when we first meet them. We know, oh, I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to say that I'm Brazilian. So people will comment it's a sunny place and it's a nice weather. Then I can come back and maybe talk about that. So we build some of the key things we bring in for that initial contact with people that allows to break the ice. But it's not something that might be easy at first when you haven't done it for a long time. But unless you try, you won't find ever easy to do. So it's a bit like exercise, I suppose. You have to start and you get sore for a while, but after persevering, you actually get to a state of fitness.
That's it.
Can-
Yeah, it's hard work.
It is, yeah.
But
No, Jane.
I think, and something you mentioned earlier, Ingun, I think we can't forget is if you have a sincere interest in the other person that you're meeting, the conversation will start. All right. It's only if you're too self-oriented and therefore, focused on, what your needs are in that moment, but exploring sincerely with that intention with the other individual, conversations will happen. And before long, you're finding out you've got something in common with this individual, or not, but at least it's been an interesting chat with them. And I think we create in our minds a bigger fear around networking and socializing in this way than has to be. Go in just wanting to build relationships, having sincere conversations with people and being interested in what they're sharing, and not thinking, oh, I want to be with that person now, But anyway, I think that is one thing that popped into my head, because I don't want to lose sight of the fact that sincere interest in the other is the key factor here.
Oh, it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, and that is still, I haven't done that yet, is these network events that people just walk in with this pile of, their cards, and they just want to share as many as possible and come out with as many as possible. And I think, you better have 2 or 3 real great conversations and don't share your cards, well, we don't share any, the personal cards anymore, and if you do, ask their cards and don't give yours, because you want to be in the lead if you are going to contact them or not. But it is about those very precious conversations that you have that really make that, that you make that click on that personal level is so much more important than the 25 cards that you could have collected in the meantime. So it's, I agree. Yeah. Robert.
And again, one last thing, if I can just add in, and that is that when you do, if you are asking for their card and you've promised them something, write down what you've promised them.
Do
right?
it. Yes.
Do it. Follow
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, it's so important. It's all these common mistakes, and you talk about it, and then you see people do it again. It's like, oh gosh, Anyhow, Robert, love to hear your.
Well, what Mary Jane just said, it reminded me that there is nothing wrong with being vulnerable. What I always try to do is prepare a number of questions. How do you feel about this? How do you look about this development, this new development? I hear about sustainable development, so don't try to impress the other one, but try to get some answers that can help you to have a good conversation, to have a good dialogue. And it's like Mary Jane just said, the dialogue will, almost automatically start and develop. And at the end of that conversation, you may decide that it was worthwhile, and you will make some mental notes about this or on the back of the business card, or you will forget this particular meeting because it didn't give the person something and it didn't give you something back. So there's nothing wrong about that conclusion. But you may still have a number of very interesting conversations. And that's when the fun starts. And by doing it many, many times, by exercising network conversations, many, many hours, you will become good at it. And you will be able to connect other people to interesting people you met. You will be able to show to your growing network that you are, you are worthwhile to connect, to talk to invite to events or whatever. And, eventually you will find the job or the thing that you were looking for, that new foundation or that new enterprise or what have you, or maybe a new partner if you like. Be it business or be it a partner for life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, thank you. We have 10 more minutes. So I would like to move into, okay, so what are the things that we did not touch, or the things that you feel like, yes, this is very important, especially for this age group, especially for people who move into that new stage on their life and are exploring, because that is something I do agree with you, Robert. It all starts with, figuring out, dive deep into who you are, reflection, reinventing yourself, because you also need that feeling of worthiness, to be able to move into a room or to approach someone. You need to feel confident about who you are to be able to do that. So let's give the last 10 minutes to, okay, so what is it, something you want to add or something that you feel, yes, this is really important? Robert.
What I could do, I can share a slide that I have. I think I have it available somewhere, somehow. You should be able to see this particular slide that I took out of a presentation. Because often people ask and wonder, how do I start this whole exercise? And, also people who think they don't have a network. Well, everybody knows somebody. So once you know your purpose, you know your qualities through self-insight and self-reflection, so you actually know what course to take, what you could do is the following. Let me see if it works. What you could do is the following. I put myself in the middle. That's always interesting about networks. When you look in the world turns around you. So you may put yourself in the middle. And the exercise I give to many people I coach in this particular area is try to make a list of 8 people, no more than 8. 8 people they know you. Don't exclude family or former colleagues or former executives, managers, what have you. Even people, that you played soccer with or football, anybody where you have the feeling this particular person may be valuable for the new course I've set for myself. So no more than 8. And you may take some time to actually list these people. And what I did is I draw a circle around myself with these 8 people. These 8 people are people I know, and obviously they are part of what we refer to as your comfort zone. You know these people, they know you, you feel comfortable when you meet them, when you talk to them, and now you're going to talk to them about growing your network. Because, and I take as an example, person number 1. And I will repeat this 8 times. Well, I won't actually today, but you will understand that you have to repeat this for yourself 8 times for the other 7 persons as well. So what you do now is you look into the network of person number 1. And this is where a tool like LinkedIn is so very helpful. Because if you look up person number 1 on LinkedIn, you will be able to see his or her connections on LinkedIn. Now, if you can't, because some people protect their network, then actually you should replace person number 1 by another person number 1. Because the first one you picked apparently cannot help you by means of their own network. So make sure that person number 1 allows you to see on their LinkedIn account what connections they have. And you can browse through their connections. And you know, some people have 500, even more. They have 2,000 connections. Do you have to look through all these connections? No, of course not. You start at the beginning and you browse one by one through the connections. And then you will see a person that is of interest to you. Why? Because it relates to your purpose, to your qualities, to your values in life, to your values and beliefs. And you write down the name, person A, and you continue with the next one and the next one. And what I usually say, collect no more than 5 names. So you don't have to go through all these 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 names. Once you have 5, where you have the feeling these persons, A through E, might be interesting to help me further move into this world, closer to my goals, write down these names and then go back to person 1 and ask person 1 for a warm introduction to A, B, C, D, and E. Because there are your chances. Your chances for what? Well, to fulfilling your purpose. There may be a chance for a good job. There may be a chance for a new assignment. There may be a chance to do something together, create a new foundation, start a new initiative. Now you repeat this for these 7 others, and so you get a list of 8 times 5 is 40 new, potentially new contacts. So you have person 1 introduce you to A, B, C, D, and E. Actually, in the conversation with person 1, now remember, person number 1 knows you very well, and you have told her or him exactly what you're looking for. So he may tell you to forget about person D. And so you may cross out person D. The good thing about this conversation is that person 1 will now realize what you are looking for. And so he may actually substitute person D by somebody else he thinks might be worthwhile to talk, to for you. At the end of the day, at the end of the conversation with person 1, you may end up with 3, 4, or 5 completely new names to you, and you will ask person 1 to introduce you to these persons, and you will have an introduction and a good, immediately contact these persons, tell what you're looking for, and you will have an introduction. And, occasionally person B may say, I'm too busy at the moment, I won't have time for you. Well, then you cross out B, but you still have A, C, D, and E to go. And this is in the beginning, well, it's almost frightening to start with a procedure like this. In the beginning, you think, wow, I don't know these people, and how shall I start the conversation? But remember that when you applied for a job, way back when you applied for jobs that were posted on a corporate website, or there was a recruiter approaching you, you didn't know these people either. And at the end of the conversation, at the end of the application conversation, you got a rejection because you did not fit their profile. This is a totally different approach. You know exactly what you are looking for. That's why you chose these 8 people out of your known network. And there is already an implicit direction in the why you chose these 8 people. And now you ask person number 1 for warm introductions into this entirely new world, the second circle. And once you get the conversations with these people, notice what happens, because person A may give you also new contacts, up to 3, 4, 5 contacts. And that is because person A understands where you are coming from and where you want to go. More important than where you come from is where you want to go. And he can guide you to some new people. And this will happen. How many did I have? 5, 8, 5 times 8 is 40 people. So your network grows rapidly. Your relevant contacts grow rapidly. You will have many conversations and you will see the fun of it very soon. Now that's
You, Robert. Yeah.
very simple chart that I use to explain to people how networking can be, you know, and it's a job. Network, you know, in Dutch we make always jokes, since networking contains the word net, just, and working, it's just like working.
It is, absolutely, yes. And it's great to make it visual like you did. Thank you very much, Robert. That was a great addition to what we have already discussed. Thank you. Mary Jane, anything you want to add?
Very quickly, I think, and it goes back, Tatiana, to something that you said. I wrote this down, this comment down, but one of the things that we, when we're on our deathbed, that one of the biggest regrets is not living life being true to ourselves. And so I think this whole aspect of self-assessment, self-insight, etc., is something that would behoove everyone to invest the time and energy in doing. So thank you, Tatiana, for bringing that one up for me. Yeah.
Thank you. A thought from me. Now, I have to say, I love that chart, Robert. It's so straightforward, so powerful to see visually how something can grow from a close group of 8. That's impossible not to be convinced and trying tomorrow, if not today.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say as well, just because we're doing I will stroke you back, Mary Jane, on something you said and something that Ingun said as well, to add to that chart. If your desire, whoever is listening to us, is to make friends, not necessarily work, why not do the same approach? Why don't you reach out to people to say, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you? How are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And just let's get in touch.
Mm-hmm.
And all this movement already will open up other movements. And in the same powerful chart, I'm sure that applies, and I'm sure it will work as well. So thank you, Robert, and thank you, Mary Jane and Ingun, for bringing the being interested as a big aspect of being interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. And you know what I like, and constantly thinking, of course, you know, this is what we're doing at the Wise Move Society. It is bringing people together, like-minded people, and it can be people just because of their age, new phase in life, going through a transition, you know, from all over the world, and just meeting. That is great. To have fun together, to really connect, and to also go through this transition together, because it is so much more fun. If you are the only one in your network, you know, your close network, your friends, family, you're the only one going through a transition, you know, there might be also a lot of people around you that feel like, you know, stay with us, stay close, you know, don't go anywhere. We want you to stay with us. Those, you know, everyone knows that person, you know, don't do that silly, you're never going to make it. Well, actually in this new phase of your life, this transition period, you need those people around you who applaud you, who are those cheerleaders, who connect you with their network, who open their network, and who mentor you. And that is actually what we're doing on the Wize Move Society. And that is also why I love this conversation. So I think we could still go on for quite some time, but we're already 4 minutes past the hour. So I want to thank, first of all, Robert, of course.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom. You are one of our trainers, our thought leaders on the Wize Move Society. So people who join us will absolutely see more of you. Thank you, Mary Jane, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Pleasure to have you in our sessions. And of course, Tatiana as my co-host every week here, and really love our conversations. So for everyone who is not yet a member of the Wize Move Society, we will, somewhere in the chat, write down the link to the website where you can find more information. And also one thing very important, the upcoming summit that we're organizing on in April 5, 7, and 12. Really exciting speakers, a lot of topics, a lot of interaction and breakout rooms. So we love to see you there as well. So thank you all for being here, for joining us, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Thanks, Robert. Thank you all.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.